Hey everyone, Darren Carnell here. Welcome to my studio. Welcome to part 4 of the Alexander the Great thing, tutorial series. Oh, brain not working. Let's get everything into position. I have hopefully got rid of the weird humming, buzzing sound from the last video, which was the desk fan that I had on, because I don't normally have it on, but it was quite warm in here yesterday, so I put the desk fan on, forgot that it was there. So for the whole video, this fan's going in the background and making the desk vibrate, which is making the sound come through. Should be gone. I still do need to sort out the hard drives which sit on the desk, and when they spin up, they can send vibrations through the desk that the microphone picks up. So I do need to still sort that out, but hopefully the buzzing from yesterday has gone. Okay, so yesterday we were working on these bottom panels. We did some... what did we do? Oh, we did the clasps gold. We added some brown aging and weathering onto the gold. What we're going to do today is add a little bit more of that, a little bit of brown on these panels to knock back the silver, and also just to get the look of silver, the look of aged silver, or I don't know, tin or whatever the metal is that I want. But I want to add some brown to that, similar to what we did with this, but not all over. I'm just going to pick out bits here and there. I'm going to add some dark shading to... God, it's so hard doing this backwards. Some dark shading to the clasps, and if we get time, I'm going to paint this leather strap, which on here is black and it's sculpted quite thick, and there's nothing I can do about that part of it, but I can change the colour so it's not black and looks so artificial, because it should be a dark brown. It should be like a leather belt and not like a black leather belt. It should look like a normal brown leather belt. So that's what's going to get done. I pushed my light out the way before, so it was further away, so it lit me up more evenly. And now I can't reach it. Okay, let's bring this in. So we'll put this about there, maybe. Let's change over to the other camera and see where we are. That's probably about alright. Now I will get up my camera settings so I have the ability to zoom in and out as I want. Right, let's get this water. Whoops, God, nearly dropped my water there, which would have been bad because it would have gone all over my computer, which is on my desk just there. Don't do that, Darren. Okay, so put the water down there. Oh, I just realised I've left a paintbrush in the water from earlier on and forgot to clean it. Whoa, don't fall over. God. Okay, I thought the statue was falling over, went to grab it, flicked water all over my desk. Not the best start to a video. Okay, brush is fine. The desk is soaking wet. Let me just quickly get rid of that so it's not a pain. Throw that away, get a new piece. I should probably change my water because that water has got a lot of black in it. Where are we? Honestly, I'm gonna leave it. If I was painting skin or something, I would completely change that water. God, that made it look way dark. It's not that dark. Can't see it without, again, light reflections. There you go, that's what it looks like. If I was painting skin or something like that, I would completely change that, because even though most of my mixing is done with flow enhancer or paint thinner, I do throw some water in sometimes, and I wouldn't want the possibility of contamination or dust going on the figure through the water, or just the colour being changed even though I'm constantly monitoring the colours of the things that I'm doing, so I would just adjust for it anyway without even noticing. But I would change the water just because I would. But with this, I'm literally just putting dark washes on these things anyway, so it's not going to make any difference. So the water's fine for this video. So now I do have to remember where about this video is. Do I leave the light up there and tilt it back, or do I bring the light forward? Forgive the wobbles. I'm going to move my light. Okay, so I need to do it. Okay, I'm just figuring out the position where it is in front of me at a comfortable distance and still on camera. Okay, that'll do, that's good. So you can see shiny but somehow old scales at the bottom. You can see the silver, yet a slightly warmer silver than this colour here that we did. And we did the clasps and we added some brown to those. And I did the brown on all of these things as well. Same as what I did with these. I added some thin brown paint on it, very thin. Added it all over, let it dry for a moment, wiped it off, did the same thing around there. So what we can do now, let's see. I'm going to do the scales at the bottom first. I'm going to add a thin brown wash, similar to what we did with these silver pieces on the top, the upper armour. I'm going to add thin brown wash just here and there. It's not going to be everywhere. So I'm going to thin this right down. Oh, excuse me. No, I don't know why I feel hungry. I had a sandwich. My stomach is rumbling. It's like, I've had food, go away. But my stomach's like, no, we want more. Okay, so water, thinner. Thin this right down. Not that you can see it. There you go. I just put a blob of brown in. I was using the airbrush stuff that I got sent by mistake. Earth red. But you can see it's sort of that colour, which is the closest that I have so far to the leather brown that I used to use. Thinned it right down. Now let's see how this, I'll do this on the back. Let's start on the big panel on the back. So I don't want to do this everywhere, but I'm just going to, in fact, let me zoom in a bit so you can see it a little bit more. I've got to be careful because he's doing his Superman pose again and he's about to punch the microphone, so I have to try and be careful with that. So this is largely going to be in the crevices. It's going to be the same sort of thing I did with the grey. You know, where I painted the grey on and wiped it off and it stayed in the crevices and added a bit of natural looking aging to it. Well, I'm doing the same thing, but unlike the grey, I'm not painting this all over the whole thing. I'm just dabbing it here and there, and then I'm going to get, might as well use this one, I suppose. Let me fold over so I can get hold of it. And instead of wiping this off, I think I'm just going to dab this off because I want some to stay on. I don't want it to just be a completely clean, like with the grey, so where I wiped it off. In fact, you know what? I will wipe it off on some bits. So what we're getting is some bits where there are bits of brown on the scales. Now it's the light is reflecting off the metal, so it's actually difficult to show. There you go. In fact, let me change the focus up and see if you can see it. So you can see the brown in the crevices, sort of underneath those scales there. So it's doing that on some of them. It's doing that on most of them where I've put it. On some of them where I've dabbed it off, the scales themselves have been changed colour ever so slightly, but it's random, it's not all of them. And then I've gone in and I actually did wipe some of them, so some of them are a little bit more shiny than others. There you go, there's a good one. So it's just a little bit more broken up than that, which is, it's got the grey on it, so that makes the metal look a little bit older because it's not quite as shiny all over. But by adding just that little bit of brown, it just gives it another dimension, another little thing. And I'm just going to do a little bit in the corner there. Now this is the sort of thing where you can do it and then you can go back later and add more if you want to. You can do as many layers. In fact, it's probably better to do that because then you get more control over how much you put on, and you're not going to accidentally overdo it at the start. Now I was sort of guessing when I did this, and you know, there's always the chance that I could do it wrong, but I sort of had a rough idea of what I was going to do. If you're unsure or if you've never done it before, thin the water down or thin the paint down even more and just put less on, and then do it and let it dry and dab it off and see how it looks. And if you think, okay, that's so subtle I can hardly even see it, fine, that's when you go back with a bit more. Yeah, I like that. So, oops, sorry. Put it on. Oh, I still have the focus up there, didn't I? So put it on, dab it off, let it stay in all the crevices, and just here and there wipe it off fully. So you've got some shiny ones, you've got some that have got brown up in the crevices, and you've got some that have got brown on the actual panels. If you want to add it back, you can just go back. Now I may go back and do a second layer on this just to add some stronger again brown, but not as much all over. Even though with this I'm not doing it all over, I'm specifically leaving gaps and I'm going stronger in bits and almost not even touching other bits. What I can do is go back, and once it's dry and I look at it and I think, okay, just that panel could maybe be quite a strong brown, that would look quite good, and just go back. And a lot of it is doing things by feel. You look at something and you go, oh, that bit should be shiny, or that bit should be brown, or if that had a bit more grey on it, that would look quite good. Where's the focus? I don't even know if I'm... There we go, up there. Ooh, I just hit that brush with brown paint somewhere. Oh, it's on his hand. Okay. I could feel that I'd hit it somewhere. I'm like, oh, I've just painted on something. What did I paint it on? Thankfully, it was his hand, and it wasn't. It's a lot of water, so it didn't damage it or anything. So I'm doing this. I'm dabbing most of it off so it stays in the crevices. Some of it where I've put it on will stay on the panels, but then just other bits, giving it a proper wipe so the bottom of the panel goes back to being shiny as it was. And that's much more varied. Let me bring the focus back down to here. Difficult to show. So show it upside down like that, you can sort of see the brown a bit stronger because you're getting less of the reflections like that. But you're not going to see that much of the brown because there you're looking up into the crevices. Now normally you're going to be looking down that way. But it's a good way of showing you the effect. There's the focus there. So on that we've got painted silver, painted grey, wiped off, leaving it in the crevices, gold, chrome polishing powder on top to make it shiny, light brown, very thin light brown wash, dabbed around into the crevices and on top of some of the panels, wiped off, dabbed off some of them, wiped off completely off the others, leaving it in the crevices, all sort of mixed up. And that just gives it a little bit of extra texture, a little bit of extra life. Now when I've done a few other things, I may go back and look at that and go, okay, I just want to add a few more stronger bits of brown, maybe even a slightly different shade of brown just to add to it. Well, that is a simple way of quickly and quite simply, because it's sort of a messy, simple, it's a wash, you dab it on, you dab it off, adding a little bit of life to things, because all you need to do with most stuff like this is break it up. It's what I do when I'm painting faces. The light on my face is so dark as that in shadow it's actually gone quite dark outside, so I'm not getting any other light other than this. I need a secondary light. I need this light to work under, and then another light over there somewhere that sort of lights me up instead of having to be under here. Hello, can you see me? Yeah, it's the same as what I'm doing. I've just got black brown and I'm giving it a shake before I use this. What was I saying? I can't remember what I was saying. Oh my god. Breaking things up. Thank you, whoever said that. All I'm doing with this, when you're dabbing stuff on and you're doing washes and wiping it off and letting it soak into the crevices and the deep sculpted parts, you're just breaking it up. And it's the same with this brown wash that I'm dabbing all over, wiping some of it off, leaving some of it on. It's visually breaking it up, and it's the same as what I do when I'm painting faces. You can paint a face sort of in the way that old action figures used to be painted about 5 or 10 years ago, or some statues are now, where it's a flat skin colour and that's it. And that's not realistic at all, and will always look false because people don't look like that. You look at people's faces, you look at their skin, they've got bits of purple in there, they've got bits of red in there, they've got darker bits and lighter bits, they've got bits of brown here and there, they've got shadows, they've got all kinds of colour going on. And when I'm painting, a lot of what I'm doing, whether I'm flicking it off a brush or painting little lines or just doing dots and dabs here and there, is randomly breaking it up, and that goes a long way to making something look alive or real. Alive if it's a a live thing, or real if it's just a in this case a bit of metal armor. Same principle. You're just trying to make it look like a real world, and real world stuff is never really completely flat colour. Okay, so just clean that brush. Don't know why I said it like that. So I've just put down some black brown there, which is my, at the moment, substitute for umber. That's actually way more than I needed. I forgot what I was doing for a second there. Okay, that's not a problem. Let's chuck a load of water on there. So I'll mix it up. How is that? It's quite thick. Okay, so I'm going to take some of that, put it in another one, so there's less of it, and then thin that down. So I'm thinning it down twice, just to get a thin enough wash what I was working with before. Clean that brush. Now then, because I was initially going to paint the strap, but then I realised I'm not done with the bit of metal yet. So that can go there. Let's grab a brush. Little small brush. It's got a round tip. It's not a brand new brush. It's not a fancy brush. It's still relatively in one piece. It hasn't sort of splayed out in weird shapes or anything. So it's usable. When I'm holding this, I'm going to try and be careful not to touch this, even though it's dry. There's dry and there's dry. That is dry to touch. It's fine. But if I was holding that long time, the heat off my fingers and the oils from my fingers, even though I've just washed my hands, I always do when I start, for paint that's not quite dry, can sometimes be enough to smudge paint or leave excuse me, or leave fingerprints or stuff like that. So while that's drying, I'll be careful not to actually touch it. Okay, so I got some of the brown, black brown, didn't do it thin enough because it was too much, put a little bit in there, watered that down even more, and here we have it. So let's have a look at this. Not actually sure what I'm going to do here. Let me see if I can zoom that in a little bit more for you. And where's the focus? Okay, I raise the focus to about there. Okay, so I've got this black brown colour. Let's get that over there. And a little bit on the brush. Dab most of it off because at the moment I don't know what I'm doing. And in here, I'm putting some of the black brown in the deep parts, the crevices, the sculpted part where there would be shadow, where things would be darker just because of the shape, and I am dropping just little bits of this black brown in there, not a lot. If too much goes on, you can just wipe it off straight away, but we're just darkening bits of it now. Do I do it around the squares? See, technically probably should be, but there's not much sculpted detail on these things. I might do a little bit of dotting around the bottom edge and then dab it off, just maybe to darken it a little bit. If there was more sculpted detail on those squares, I might do a little bit more there, but just a little bit of something. But it's mainly these little bits. And you can see I'm just adding a little bit of dark just where it would be dark. So might as well do the same on the other side, so we've got those equal. One thing I've noticed, this colour, and I don't know if it's just this specific colour because it's supposed to be the airbrush one, or it's all of these paints, but you leave them for 5 seconds and they separate, and they sort of have a grainy quality, and you have to re-mix them up, and that never used to happen with my MP paints that I used to use. And I don't know if that's just Vallejo in general, or if it's just this specific one that I'm using right now because it's designed for airbrushes, so you're not supposed to. I don't know. But it is a thing that I've noticed before, and I can't remember whether it happens with the other colours, but I do remember seeing it a few times. I'm like, why am I having to mix that up already? Can we still see there? There you go. So I'm sort of doing this in the same places each time, but I'm also trying to just make it a little bit different on each one. Sometimes a bit heavier, sometimes a bit lighter. Now this one doesn't have any sculpted detail on it at all. For some reason they just sculpted a flat square on this one, so what I'm going to do is sort of just a little bit give the hint of some shape. with some of the paint. Even though, so that is basically a flat square. I've just given it a little hint of the shape so our eye will see that along with all the others and go, oh yeah, that's one of those. Because often it's not about actually making something look like a particular thing, it's just about making your eye or your brain think it's looking at a thing. Because your brain fills in a lot of gaps. And in that case, you can paint a flat square to look like the pattern, and if all of the rest of them have that pattern, your brain will just go, oh yeah, well, so does that one, obviously. So now, we've got those gold ones. Where is the focus? There. We've got these gold ones where we did the gold, we put the brown on, we wiped it off. I'm now going in here with this dark umber, black brown wash. I'm putting it in all the edges. All the deeper parts. And then I'm going to get my tissue and just quickly wipe, but to let it sit in the inside. Now, can we see a difference? Let's see if I can show this. So this one here was painted gold, very similar to that colour. We painted brown. I need to move this camera because as I bring it closer, the camera is blocking the light, so I need to be able to hold the piece a bit further away from me, which is slightly less comfortable, but it means I just getting more light. Okay, so gold with brown for a thing, for some aging, wiped off. That's that. And now we've just gone in and we've just put a little bit of dark right in the bottom, so you can see sort of in that bit there, and in that bit, and that bit, and that bit. Did the same thing, wiped it off, and hopefully you can see a difference between those two. Just a little bit more realism. And that's enough. Oops. Head butted the camera, don't do that. Where are we? Okay, so put a lot of paint in there. Oops. Properly headbutting the camera. So there you go. So without the dark bit, these ones end up looking quite orange. And once you go in there and you got just a little bit of extra shadow right in the deep bits, just makes them pop a little bit more. So I'm going to go around all of the rest of them. I'll do a couple more on camera. That's looking really good, that. Let's knock the focus back down there. Let's zoom that out a little bit. Rawr. Looking very good. So what I'm going to do, let's see. Oh, these were the awkward ones. I remember these last time. These are the ones that were awkward to get to. And are still awkward to get to. So what I'm going to do, I did say I was going to do 2 more, ended up doing 4 more because I was talking and I wasn't thinking. You know, I'm almost done now. I've only got 4 to do. Might as well just carry on doing them. Because I was going to stop just because they can be a bit boring because I'm painting the same thing multiple times, and that can be boring, and also I can run out of things to say. But it didn't take me too long to do them. And if I need to redo any bits, like if I look back and go, you know what, those shadows could be a little bit stronger, I'll just go in and do them off camera and tell you about it, rather than making you watch this same thing again. You can hear my phone vibrating, but I'm going to assume it's nothing important. I'm going to work on the assumption that if it was important, they'd phone me. So chucking some brown in, doing the dark shadows, no shadows, shadows. And what was I going to do next? I was going to do the belt, wasn't I? Okay, so that's the brass gold clasps done, the buckles. Done the metal on the bottom, we've added some brown to that. Just makes it look a little bit more in the middle of battle, but not sort of filthy or falling apart or rusty or anything, just a bit more realistic. Which is great. That, I mean, even just doing those bits, those silver bits, the clasps, and when this is done, just doing that makes it loads better already. Let's see. So I'm just going to get the original pre-super thinned down brown black, and I just want to have a look at these clasps here. So this belt is going to get repainted in the same colour as these little short belts are. So I'm going to do one of these little short ones at the front just to see what it looks like. Because what's going to happen is they're going to get painted this black brown base colour. I don't know if you can see that. Which is going on here almost like a greyed out version of the black. It's got a bit of brown in it. It's very dark, but it's not black. It's going to get painted with this dark brown colour, and then some point after that it is going to, sorry, let me turn that music down. At some point after that I'm going to do a little bit of extra detailing on top to make it look a bit more like a leather belt, because I don't want it to just be one flat colour. If you look at a leather belt, like a proper leather belt, you'll see the brown has got different shades, different colours, and I want it to look like that. So I'll probably end up going over it with some different shades of brown, either dry brushing patterns on top, or painting thin washes on top to do sort of not stripes, but just to make it look like it's it's a natural, not a fabric, but you know what I mean, it's not a piece of molded plastic that's being painted black. So I'm going to do that, but I'm just painting this black brown base colour first so I can see what it looks like. Oh, already that's better. Don't even know if you can see that. Let me bring the focus up and let me bring the zoom up. Now this is still wet, so it's going to be shiny and you probably can't tell the difference. Where are we? So that's black. Oh, see, now on screen that looks exactly the same. To my eyes it doesn't. I don't know if it looks any different to you. It's a little bit lighter, it's a little bit more brown, but to me, just at that distance, just sitting there looking at that, don't even know that shows. It's not black, and therefore it looks not artificial, which is so much better. Even just that, even before I do any aging or weathering or trying to make it look like leather or any of that, just by painting it this colour instantly pushes it a little bit further back. And because artificial colours like flat black, especially when they are painted on plastic or resin or something, it makes it look like a painted piece of plastic. And just by doing this dark brown, all of a sudden it just makes it a little less stand out, a little bit less obvious, and a bit less like an artificial thing. I might have to do a few coats because there's some bits where it hasn't been painted that neatly. I'm sort of painting over lines here to do it where it should have been painted, but for whatever reason they just didn't paint it up to the edges. So it may take me a couple of coats on that, which is sort of a pain, but I did thin the paint down, so I should expect it. So what I'll do is let it all dry and then go back and just paint over it with a second coat. Yeah, that's loads better. In fact, I might not even have to do too much to that in terms of weathering, because that looks pretty good, but I will do some. It might just be a case of, because that is actually quite a good dark leather colour, so what I might just do is do some lighter dry brushing or something around the edges. You know the way leather gets worn out? If you have a leather belt, the bits of it that get stretched and bent and touched the most, they end up being a bit paler, a bit lighter in colour. Well, I might just do some bits like that on the edges, the corners and the bits that get bent over the edges. I can do that to make it look a little bit worn out, but not old, but just a bit real. and that will help. Sorry, I wasn't even paying attention to whether I was doing that on camera there, so I apologise if I had moved that off camera. Now, I have just realised that I also moved the zoom, so this is probably too far away for you to see anything anyway. In which case, sorry again. Sorry. Where's the zoom? There you go. Oops, where's the camera? Don't know if you can see the difference between that central black belt and the little ones that I've just painted now. They look very different to my eye. Well, not very different, but different enough to my eye. These ones just look a little bit more faded, I suppose you could say, than this thing. And so they look better. Now what I might as well do, seeing as I've got this colour, have I got enough of it? I don't know. I will, where's the camera? Hang on, let me check my computer is not backing up, because I noticed some delay on my movements there. Oh, it's okay for now. I looked up and I could see as I was moving the statue, it was actually a bit behind the real world. So I was wondering, sometimes that means that my computer's sort of trying to do an automatic backup or something, and it slows down everything, and recording like this is quite processor intensive for a little computer like what I've got. So if it does like one extra thing at the same time, all of a sudden the computer's like, oh, I can't do that. Where are we? There. Forgive me being very quiet here, I'm just painting a load of brown on a load of black and I can't actually think of anything to say. This can sometimes be the problem with doing things in real time. If this was an edited video, I'd have time afterwards to think of something to say in the voiceover. But because I record these as I do them, they don't get edited afterwards. Now I think this, because this black belt as it goes around the shoulders has got quite a few very deliberate and rubbish looking splodges of, you know, weathering. It's supposed to be mud and stuff, and it just looks bad. But I can see them showing through this paint because this was thinned down. Because when I started I actually wasn't sure what I was doing. And I could do with using a neater brush for some of these bits. So what I'm going to do afterwards when this is dried is I will go back with the same colour and just do a second coat on top, so that any bits that are showing through are no longer showing through, and also I will neaten up any of the edges that are perhaps not getting done super neat at the moment because I'm not using the best brush. But at the moment this one is in my hand, and especially as I do know that this is going to be the first of a couple coats, I might as well just carry on doing it and fix it afterwards. Sorry, I really can't talk today. My brain is like, Darren, focus on the painting. So I'm doing at the moment, I'm just fairly quickly blocking in the colour. And honestly, I don't even know, especially with the light overhead, if this shows as being any different or if it just looks like I'm rubbing an empty brush on a piece of plastic. To me, the colour change is quite strong, so I can see exactly where I'm painting. But what I'm doing is just quite quickly whacking down some colour on the main front of the belt, and then I'm going to go back and do the edges where I've got to be a little bit more careful. Where are we? Where I've got to be a little bit more careful, you know, up against the edge, up against whatever those edges are touching, whether it's the metal plates or the cream coloured part of the outfit or whatever. But for this bit, I'm just very quickly getting some colour down and trying not to paint his arm like I nearly just did. That would be no good. Okay, so that's all those edges done. And just the other edge, and then I am done with this. Done with this for this take. I will go over with another coat just to make sure that you can't see through any of the rubbish previous weathering that they did, which is like they literally just threw paint at the thing. It was terrible. I'll make sure that that's all covered up. I'll do the edges a bit neater, but it's essentially just going to be doing exactly what I'm doing right now, which is using that black brown and going around everything. I'll tell you what, now that I've turned off that fan so that there was no noise coming through the microphone, it's getting very warm under these lights. Getting cramp in my hand there. Oh, okay. Ow, ow, ow. I've been leaning over too long. Let me zoom out. Where's my cursor gone? Now I do not know if that shows. Oh, there you go. You can see it's not. I haven't really got a comparison. I got a black. Okay, there's an old black paint, MP paint. See the difference? It's just a little bit lighter, it's a little bit more brown. And that's all we need. That makes it look like more of, and these little straps as well, more like real leather straps. Oops, I didn't do those two. I'll do those afterwards. They look more like leather straps now. And especially when they've had the second coat, so you know, there's no brush marks, there's no things showing through. And especially when the whole thing is done and it's been varnished, and what I will do is go over these straps with this matte varnish, which is the most matte varnish I've ever seen out of all matte varnishes that exist in history. It's ridiculous. It's not very tough, so you have to be careful you're not going to scratch it or anything, but it does give the most non-shiny effect ever. So if there are bits on a model that you want to be really not shiny, that's the stuff to paint on. So I will varnish the whole thing, the usual spray varnish over the whole thing, and just pick out those bits, and those being super flat in colour will make them look even more like leather. And I might pick out some highlights with a lighter brown here and there just to liven it up a little bit. But that's looking good. Compared to how it started, and for relatively not a huge amount of work, that looks really good in comparison. Awesome. Right, let me find my cursor again. I keep losing my cursor. Right, push this out of the way. My room is really dark now, so I'll try and point the light at me a bit. Light, stay where you're supposed to stay. No, it's not staying there. Oh, that looks so shiny. I definitely need, for when it gets dark, I definitely need more light in here. Most times this one light and the big window that's in front of me is perfect to work under. It's easily enough light, but when it goes dark outside, it's alright, it's fine, but it just doesn't look as good as I want it to. So I will either end up replacing or adding to that tube light with an LED version of that tube light, which will be better power efficiency, so it won't be using as much electricity to leave that thing on. And I might get a separate LED panel or something to have over there to just light me up for when I'm talking, so I'm not messing around with that arm and trying to switch. So it's just there and it's on, and then I can deal with that at some point. Okay, so that was number, what was that? Number 4? I think that was number 4. We added all the dark shadow work in the clasps, the metal clasps. We painted the first coat, I'll do the second coat off camera, of the leather belt, the leather straps and the big leather belt. And we added some brown to that silver on the bottom half around his waist, just to make it, I think it's going to be too bright for that camera because I don't have it set up to show you that. That's all right, you can see it a little bit. And we added some brown to that waistband area just so it wasn't so silver, but not like we did with the chest pieces where we just painted the whole things brown and changed the colour of the metal. The waist one, we've just given it some weathering, and I may do more, but it was a start to, and it could be fine by itself. I'll know when it's dry and I look at it in better light, but it just gave it a little bit of age, a little bit of random age, a little bit of random age, dirt, weathering, whatever you think of, whether you just want the metal to look old, whether you want it to be stuff from the battlefield, whether you want it to be rust. You do stuff like that, and you can either change the colour of the metal by painting it all over, or just do it here and there. And even so, you've got 3 layers of, you've got painting it here and there where you decide you think it's going to look good. That's one layer of choice of how it looks. The second layer is when you go in with the tissue and you dab some of it off, and you are then, that's another layer of choice because some of it you are leaving on, some of it you are dabbing off, and the other layer, the third layer, is sometimes you go in with that tissue and you wipe it off completely, so you're taking bits off. So you've got 3 methods of control by just putting that brown on. So it's not just painting it all over, you've got control over the whole thing, and that just ends up looking a bit more real and a bit more, yeah, he's got this thing and it's made up of lots of different, because those panels, it's not one solid metal panel, it's made up of hundreds of little metal squares. So it stands to reason that some of those would age at different rates. Some of them may be different ages, some of them may have been taken from other suits of armour. It's not a suit of armour, but you know what I mean, so other bits of armour. And even just in the battlefield, some of them may have got bits of mud on and bits of water, and then therefore aged at different rates as well. So you can just put all that story in the thing with paint. So there you go. So that is number 4. Sorry, I've got a big thing of PVA glue on my desk because I was using it for a thing, and as I slid my painting board out the way, it was behind the microphone and it hit the microphone. So if you heard the noise, that's what it was. Okay, I am going to go because I actually have to go up the road to the shop to pick up a roll of film, actual film, from a camera that I sent up to be developed, and I have to do that before they close. So, going to do that now. So that's an hour and 5 minutes. We've done some stuff there. I will go over the belts and do a second coat off camera just to neaten it up, make it a solid colour, neaten up the edges, but the same as what you've just been watching. And then when we come back in the next video, maybe we'll do some scratching, some aging of the leather belts in just little bits here and there on the edges and stuff, and see what else we need to do. Maybe do some more on the silver squares. Maybe I said I was going to repaint some of that red. I'd ideally like to not have to do that, but I think I'm going to have to because I think some paint went over it on some of the earlier bits. And then we'll decide what to do. It may be a case of moving on to the next part of the statue then. So, alright, I'm going. It's getting very hot in there and I need to put this fan back on. Hang on. In fact, while I'm here... I don't know if you can hear that. I don't know if you're getting any vibrations through the desk. Oh, that's nice. Okay, my fan is back on now. Have a good day, guys. Look after yourselves. Let me know if you've got any questions. Leave some comments. Go and look at my other things. Go and subscribe to my YouTube and my Instagram and all the usual stuff. And I'll see you for the next video in this series, and we will see what we do. It's either going to be carrying on this, probably is the next one. Maybe the video after we'll jump to another part of the statue. So take care. Do something nice for someone. Be nice to an animal, or be nice to an old person, or just do something nice, and I will see you soon. Right, I'm going. I'm doing it again. I need a quick goodbye, like a little bit of script to say, and that's Darren Connell signing out. Bye, and just go. Take care, guys. Look after yourselves. See you soon.